for accountability in governance. And today's topic is a very interesting one. Well, we are going to be looking at the role of accountability in promoting good governance. Now, the topic is already interesting, and to do justice to this topic today, with me in the studio, I have a very beautiful woman, and she will definitely be introducing herself. So, hello, happy Boxing Day to you.
Hello. My name is Faith Joshua Uba.
Okay.
I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Lift for Citizens Development and Advancement.
Okay. All right. So you said your name once again?
Faith Joshua Uba, Chief Operating Officer, Lift for Citizens Development and Advancement.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about accountability in promoting good governance. What's your understanding of that?
So it's basically how citizens, the youth, can ensure that there's good governance, and using accountability, holding our leaders accountable, ensuring that they ask questions, the right questions, and making sure that campaign promises are not just made without being implemented. So that's just a summary of what holding our leaders accountable and ensuring that there's governance is all about.
All right. All right, so let's get back to Faith. So we were talking about accountability, so give us more insight on that.
Yes, so we're talking about accountability and good governance, and that's to look at how holding our leaders accountable ensures that there's effective service delivery and there's value for money. So accountability is us not just allowing campaign promises to be made, but ensuring that we follow through the whole process to ensure that these promises are being implemented and perfected by our leaders.
Now, how would you define the relationship between accountability and good governance? Now, you already talked about that, but taking it a step further, why do you think it is crucial for the well-being of society?
So accountability enhances good governance. So if there is no accountability, there will be governance, but then we will not say sure if it's good governance, because there are some components that makes up a good governance.
Okay.
And accountability is a major. So there's accountability, there's transparency, and all of these then entails to value for money and effective service delivery. And of course, it's important because if there is no good governance, then the well-being of the society would not be achieved.
Okay.
Right? It encompasses everything that ensures that people get value for money. It's taxpayers' money. And once the taxpayers' money is being used for any project, or it's being used to implement or carry out campaign promises are used, budgets are developed, taxpayers' money are used to implement this budget. But then if citizens are not holding our leaders accountable, then things will just go haywire, things will go south, and nobody would be held responsible for them. So that's why it's crucial and it's important for accountability that then leads to effective service delivery, and then leads to a better governance, and the society is good at large.
All right. Now, from your perspective, how do you see individuals, organizations, and government entities being held accountable? Now, when they're being held accountable, how do you see it contributing to the overall governance of the nation? Looking at Nigeria, for example.
All right, so, there's this perception in Nigeria that once election is coming, politicians then come, carry out campaign promises, and at that point, they buy rice and distribute to the youth. They buy Maggi, they buy salt, and then give.
You forgot beans and yam.
And of course, they then give cash. Let's say 2,000 naira to the communities. But then, with that thought that giving all of these, they have bought our consciences and they've bought our votes, and they believe that if they have done this, they've sorted you out.
Okay.
So the next 4 years, you don't even have any say or even a moral right to come and hold them responsible and hold them accountable. But then that's not the case. It's not meant to be. And that's where youth actually should come in. During elections, yes, they come to make campaign promises. They come to tell, they even come with these gifts. But then we as youth are not meant to sell our rights, not meant to sell our votes, not meant to engage in some vices that enables the political leaders feel like we can't hold them accountable. So ensuring that once they are there, that we are speaking up, we're talking, we're making sure we are engaging them, we're making sure that they know that we are aware of our rights. And how do they know we are aware of our rights? If a particular activity is supposed to be carried out, and then we make sure that we participate, we ask them questions. We don't just let it go, we don't just let it slide. Then they again realizes that we understand our rights. And if we understand our rights and they know we are holding them accountable, they then sit up. And once they sit up, there'll be good governance.
Okay, now still talking about the youth, how do you think youth in local communities can actively engage in holding local and national authorities accountable? And still talking about the grassroots, what does this grassroots accountability have on governance? Does it have any impact whatsoever?
All right, youth can engage using various means and various platforms. It's possible during public hearings. They are usually public hearings, right?
True.
Youth can actually engage in that. Attend public hearings, and when bills are proposed, they make their own suggestions and make amendments. Or maybe there's a bill being amended, they make suggestions on what they think should be done, what particular section of a bill should be amended, what shouldn't be amended. That's one angle the youth can actually engage. Another one is they can make use of the Freedom of Information Act. You know, last week I spoke about the FOI, and I explained in details how the FOI Act works, right? But then the youth are not making use of it, and this instrument is there for them to effectively use. And with the FOI Act, the youth are being empowered to ask the government questions because the act allows them to make requests for information. But then, if the youth does not make use of these legislators, then they cannot effectively participate. Another thing they could do is visit the legislators, speak to the legislators. I know some of the legislators actually have what they call constituency offices. So then the youth can actually go there, speak to them about their demands, speak to them about what they have, what they need, what the challenges are in their communities. And with that, the legislators know what the issues are and know how to come in. I'm going to use a case of a community where we had an intervention, a former project I had worked on, right? So it's a Buzankure community here in Kuje.
Okay.
They had this issue of no water. They didn't have access to good water. So we were then carrying out a project on civil engagement. And what we had done then was then come and meet with the youth. We spoke to them, engaged them, taught them on how to make use of the FOI Act. And then what they then did is, with the empowerment we gave to them, they were able to use the Freedom of Information Act to then write letters, to then communicate with their legislators and also communicate with their local government councils. And after all of this, remember, they are now empowered.
True.
And with the empowerment, they are now able to engage. And at the end of all of this engagement, they were able to get a borehole installed in their community. Yes, and this is what holding our leaders accountable can do. And this is what making use of legislations can actually help us do. So you can speak to them, you can talk. You can speak to our leaders, you can talk to them, but if there's no legal backing, at times they feel like they're not mandated. And that's why I speak about the FOI. The FOI gives us this legal backing as youth to make requests, and then know that our requests would actually be met and heard, of course, because it's a legislature and it's giving us this backing. So the youth needs to actually effectively engage in it and make use of it. Other ways they can also do is like I said, call their legislators. Their legislators are there, though it's often difficult to reach them most times. But where it's possible to reach the legislators, call them, meet up to them, and then have a conversation about how about the particular needs they want and how that need should be met, or maybe a particular campaign promise that has been made but has not been implemented, then speak to them about ways that this project is meant to have been implemented,
but
this promise is meant to have been done, but it hasn't been done. Why? So when we are asking them why, then they know that, oh, things are no longer as usual. They need to sit up and then get things done.
All right, so it's safe to say that the FOI, that's the Freedom of Information Act, is kind of like a mechanism to use for accountability. Now, looking at this, how can the accountability mechanisms be strengthened to ensure that services delivered efficiently and meet the needs of the public?
Okay, so now the FOI Act is there.
Okay.
And it helps provide an environment that helps for open system. So yes, it's for us to improve the transparency by enabling an open government and an open environment. But then the FOI Act also mandates public institutions, MDAs, and all of the governance structure to ensure that they release information proactively. But then we see cases where information are not proactively released at all. But then, according to Section 4, subsection 4 and 5 of the FOI Act, it says public institutions shall ensure that information referred to in this section is widely disseminated and made readily available to members of the public through various means, including print, electronics, and online sources, and at the office of such public institution. And section 5, subsection 5 then says, a public institution shall update and review information required to be published under this section periodically and immediately whenever changes occur. So that's to say that whatever information that is meant to be public information, they should proactively disclose it. But that's not being done. So a good way to ensure that our governance and accountability mechanism is being strengthened is to ensure that information are proactively being disclosed. Another one is the domestication of the Freedom of Information Act. So the FOI Act has been enacted.
Has it been domesticated?
No, but nationally it's been implemented. But at the state level, it has not been adopted and domesticated in the states. So it's making it difficult for people to gain access to information from the states. So you see cases where we make requests using the Freedom of Information Act in a state, and they tell you that they are not liable to release information based on the act because it has not been domesticated in that state. So it's important for the domestication of acts at the various states so people can easily gain access to information.
Okay. Now, what do you think are the initiatives or reforms that are necessary to further promote accountability in governance?
All right, so there are a lot of other things we could do.
Okay.
But then we need to build the capacity of the ministries, departments, agencies, and officials that are meant to disclose information to us. So yes, the Act has then mandated them to disclose information, but there's little or no disclosure because they are scared. So some persons believe when FOI request is being sent to them that they shouldn't disclose those information because if they should disclose, then they'll be punished. But that's not the case. And they then talk about the Official Secrets Acts that we have. But the FOI Act in section 27, subsection 1 had said, notwithstanding anything contained in the Criminal Code, in the Penal Code, in the Official Secrets Act, or any other enactment, that no civil or criminal proceedings shall lie against an official of any public institution or against any person acting on behalf of a public institutions, and no proceedings shall lie against such person thereof for the disclosure in good faith of any information or any part thereof pursuant to this act, and for any consequence that flows from the disclosure or for the failure to give notice required under this act, if care is taken to give the required notice. So this section of this act then lets them know that they are not going to be liable for releasing information because the act has mandated them to do that, and the information is public information. It should be disclosed to the public. So no government institution would then go and carry out a proceedings against the staff for releasing information that is meant to be public. So you see, if they are aware of this, then they would then have a good faith to release this information, especially when it's done in good faith. Not that you are releasing information that is not meant to be released in good faith, because we know that there's some information that are also called classified information.
True.
But then the challenge here then is that most other institutions then base their reason for denying information as to the fact that that information being requested for is classified. But then not all informations are classified. There are information that are meant to be there. There are specific informations that we can agree to be classified if they are going to be security threats, if they are going to be of any form of security threat to the nation, right? But then an information as to a project that you had implemented, and then we want to know how much you had spent for that project, who you contracted for that project, what are the processes you are taking, and all of those kind of information are not in any way classified information. So we need to also build a capacity and let them understand that yes, they are classified information, but not all information are classified. So that's an important thing that needs to be done to ensure that there is there's reforms and we promote accountability. Another thing would then be having dedicated desk officers. So when we speak a lot of FOI Act, it's because this is the legislation we have to actually hold our leaders accountable. It gives us the legal backing because you can actually sue if you are denied information.
True.
But then having a dedicated FOI desk officer then allows for easy responses. So the act already says that within 7 days information should be disclosed where a request is being made. But then if there are no specific persons that are supposed to respond to that, there's a tendency that they would default within that 7 days. So section 4 of the FOI Act has said where information is applied for under the Act, the public institution to which the application is made shall, subject to section 6, 7 and 8 of this Act, within 7 days after application is received, make the information available to the applicant. And he also said, where the public institution considers that the application should be denied, the institution shall give written notice to the applicant that access to all or parts of the information will not be granted, stating reasons for the denial, and the section of the Act under which the denial is being made. So you see, there's a need for us to actually build that capacity and then ensure that we have specific desk officers that will be responsible for these things.
Okay, now moving on from this, how do you feel that the youth can actually play an active role in these reforms that you have spoken about?
All right, so youth can play active roles in so many ways.
Okay.
So let's say an information, there's something relating to a youth fundamental human right is being denied.
Okay.
The youth can actually sue. Other than using the FOI Act that allows for litigation, as a citizen of Nigeria, it is also a right if anything is done, especially something that affects your fundamental human rights, we can actually sue them. So when we are trying to engage and hold our leaders accountable and they're not being accountable, then we have the right to sue. Or then we can also leverage on other organizations that does litigations. Maybe speak to some of any other civil society organization or any legal firm that handles things on litigation. You can then sue. When we begin to sue our legislators, they will sit up. When we stop saying all is well, so when there are issues, we have the tendency of saying, "Kai, is well, and then we let it go. Yes, it's well, but we need to take actions. We need to start suing them, taking them to court, and also making sure that we follow through the process to make sure that there are judgments. If we begin to get 1 or 2 judgments in favor of the youth, then our legislators will actually sit up. We have said make use of the Freedom of Information Act, engage in public hearing. When there's public hearings, the youth can actually engage in that. The youth can then write letters. The youth can ask questions, questions. Keep asking questions, actually.
All right, keep asking questions. Now, with all these reforms about accountability, one needs to know, what are the challenges involved?
Oh, yeah. So there are lots of challenges, and One would be lack of capacity.
Okay.
So if the youth do not have the capacity to know, for example, that there's even a Freedom of Information Act that they can use, how will they then hold the government accountable? How will they then get involved in governance? So there's a need for us to build capacity. There's a need for sensitization. So keep having a lot of sensitization about the act, about other great platforms that they can gain access to information from. So just empower the youth with information and data on how to ask questions, what kind of questions to ask. If there's a project in your community, for example, that is not being implemented, or is so we've had cases where projects will be done in a community, and then the contractor will then be making the community feel like they are doing them a favor. You have been paid to carry out a project in my community, and then I'm asking you questions about that community, about that project you're carrying out, and you are snubbing me and making me feel like you're doing me a favor. You're actually not doing me a favor. You're carrying out the function that you have been paid for, using our money. It's taxpayers' money you are using. So the youth needs to know that it's even actually their money they are using. We pay tax, so it's our money they use to do this project. And if they are doing that, then we should be able to ask questions.
True. Okay, now finally, before you go, what role do you feel the media can play in holding these agencies and government accountable?
All right, so the media does have a lot of roles to play. An example would be engaging in investigative journalism.
All right.
Right, so journalism with carrying out investigations using data for journalism. And when we have facts and figures, and the media is there publishing it and showcasing those things with facts, proven facts, then of course we know that there would be accountability. Like I said earlier, nobody wants their name dragged. And when you are dragging their names with facts, they would go back and they will sit up. Another thing the media could do would be engaging in empowerment sessions like what we are doing today, speaking about this, letting the city community, the citizens know their rights, letting them know how to engage, empowering them. Just keep talking about it, and the media, with the media platforms, then there will be wider reach. A lot of people would hear about it. They'll be more aware on how to participate, and of course, with that, the media's role in ensuring that people knows would then be more effective.
Well, thank you so much, Faith, for being part of the program. Like, we got a whole lot of education today about accountability. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, if you're just joining us, this is Catalyzing Youth Actions for Accountability in Governance. And today's topic was the role of accountability in promoting good governance. Now, it's good to note that this program was brought to you by Green Light Initiative Radio Awareness Program, and it is proudly supported by Nigerian Youth Future Fund and Leap Africa. Well, I hope to see you again next week. My name is Benedicta Henshaw. Many thanks for listening. Bye-bye.